Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our first OnlyFinns of the season. This has been the first time since the Six Nations. Doesn't sound at all like our headline character Finn as well. But we're here today to talk a wee bit about the upcoming game at the weekend, and well, I think we might touch on some other things around management as well. Joining me today, guess who's back? It's Slim Shady himself. Cammy Black, welcome back. How are you?
I'm all right. Return of the Black, or as Alan McDonald said earlier today, Return of the Crack, which
Return
is what he's calling the Return of Finn Russell. So I quite like that. That title for the OnlyFinns, Return of the Crack.
Return of the Crack. Are you wanting to steal that for yourself as well? Because I think it can work.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how the next half an hour goes, John.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to have you back, mate, and we'll look forward to getting you back on the main pod in due course as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a jingle for that or something.
Yeah, apologies to everybody on the OnlyFinns who had my mock-up video of you. Of you finding me emerging from the shower, so the kind of Dallas ending.
It was, it was when you said it over. I was like, I'm all in for this. But wow, very creative as always, mate. So
yeah, I upset Johnny McGinty greatly.
He got really, really, really upset, didn't he? But yeah, poor Johnny. It's because he had to spend the 80 minutes on Saturday with me as well, so he's a wee bit traumatized by that. So that's the issue there. Anywho, so game at the weekend, Cammy. The New Zealand team's out. The Scotland team is not out because
Who does 3 p.m. team announcements, right? In what world would you plan a team announcement at 3 o'clock? We're back to, do you remember when they used to announce the team one person, one position at a time? It used to take 5 hours on Twitter. And we just be like me, you, Graham Love, and everybody else just relentlessly trolling them to get on with
it. Yep.
No, fine, we're not doing it over lunchtime. We'll do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That'll show you. You should be working anyway.
To wait. But in the modern kind of world of social media, lunchtime's when you want to get it out, right? You want to get your team announcement out 1 o'clock at the latest, right? It gives everyone an hour to talk about over the lunchtime, create a bit of buzz. You pick up the kind of 5 o'clock home time crew as well.
Yep.
3. It's just a point, unless there's a last minute call on a player. That's the only reason I can think it's 3 o'clock. But even then, this seems to have been planned. Like they were always going to do it at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, from what we've heard, it is planned, and and I mean, we've seen actually throughout the autumn series coming to that in a second. We've seen throughout the series that actually, even if there is a last minute change, like if someone fails a fitness test or something, they'll name them in the team, and then they'll announce it on the day or what have you that they're out. So Doogie Lowe is joining us live today. Hi Doogie, great to have you along as always. Maybe it's delayed because Tooney's waiting to see if Finlay Christie was available for Scotland.
Well, he could have found out very easily because he's been named in the All Blacks starting 15. Which as Johnny McGinty has pointed out on our Twitter feed is a real, that's a strong move from the All Blacks. That's not quite how Johnny's put it, but it is naming your Scottish-born player to make his Murrayfield debut. Finlay Christie is making his Murrayfield debut. People have been calling for this for years, John, for Finlay Christie to make his Murrayfield debut. Who would have thought it would be for the All Blacks?
Yeah, who'd have flunked it? But I mean that All Blacks team. We'll touch on that just now. Yeah, that All Blacks team. We talked in the main pod about the New Zealand back row, and they've chosen violence this weekend. Yeah. You've got Ione, you've got Papele, and you've got Savea. I mean, Scotland, with the best will in the world and with the absolute, back rows we're talking about playing that may have tendencies towards attempting violence, that isn't beatable. That's a massive back row.
No, I mean, you look at so you had highlights of the last time New Zealand played at Murrayfield on this morning. There's a John Barclay try, and you look at the ferocity that our back row played with in that day. That's absolutely how they've got to play. I mean, Matt Ferguson and Jamie Ritchie are, have been phenomenal so far. Mish shouldn't have gone on the summer tour. I think that's clear from.
Yeah,
he's not been bad. He's been perfectly fine. He's just looks like he's playing at like 95%.
Yeah,
rather than 100%. It's not. He can't fault his performances, but they're not up to his normal high standards.
Yeah,
he's not. He doesn't look. Yeah, he's just slightly off the pace, and you need somebody. It's that ferocity, that relentlessness. That's the only way you're going to get at the All Blacks, is to fight fire with fire and meet them up front, really. And it's Ritchie, Matt Ferguson and Jamie Ritchie. I don't think I've taken a step backwards so far. I think Jamie Ritchie's captaincy has been excellent, but I don't think Mish starting is what's. Well, it'd be interesting to see whether it happens. But I'm not sure that there's enough balance with the three of them starting against the All Blacks in the form that Mish is in at the minute, which that pains me to say it.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying exactly the same, that I think Mish, he looks slightly off the pace. We thought maybe still carrying a wee bit of the injury from the Lions tour potentially. But yeah, he just isn't himself. He isn't quite that. There's been no pinball. That's basically all we're looking for. There's been no pinball.
Do you know what he looks like? He's bulked up.
It does.
I wonder if that's, he's gone. He's bulked up, but looked big on the Lions tour, and he still looks big. And when Mish was doing his Mishness, he was a little bit leaner. Do you know what I mean? And I think he's maybe swapped bulk for speed. Maybe it's an age thing. He's not. He's kind of late 20s now, 28, 29 Mish.
Yeah, he'll be maybe even older than that, I think.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's just a kind of, he's short. He realizes his pace is going, so he's decided to swap bulk for pace. But we've seen that happen with Scotland players before, who've kind of bulked up and have lost something in doing so. And I just wonder if he's put a bit too much beef on at the minute, and that's slowing him down, or just meaning he's not able to do what he used to do. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of calls for Andy Christie to start. I mean, it's hard because by the time people listening to this, the team will be out. So I don't want to speculate too much, other than to say we're going to struggle against that All Blacks back row at the weekend. Yeah,
and I mean, the All Blacks have also kind of went. There's other parts of the team. I love the fact they have a prop called Groot. That's going to be like.
Thing is, as well, right? Because his name's Ethan, right? Is it Ethan Groot? Sounds like I am Groot.
I'm going to have endless fun with that this weekend. But I mean, in terms of the backs, New Zealand have picked as well. Obviously, that as you say, Finlay Christie making his Murrayfield debut. Beauden Barrett, who I decided his porridge was just right. I decided recently. If you haven't seen the podcast this week, that'll make no sense to you. But the Barrett brothers are in fact the three bears.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we've decided. Bodie at 10, which I still maintain is his best position. It's a wonderful issue the All Blacks have to try and cram all their talent into these positions.
They're not the only one. We'll come on to.
Well, yes, we may.
Not the only country struggling to decide which is the best 10, John.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you've got Jordy Barrett there as well. You've got Rico Ione to come off the bench. I mean, that is a full noise All Blacks team.
Frizzle, Vi. Yeah, it shows. I mean, what I would say is you think of not the last time they played, the time before last they played, where we gave them that scare. And, I think, if Laidlaw made a couple of kicks, I think the result was very different. We scored a couple of tries. It was a narrow loss. Yes, you had Carter at 10, but he was coming back from a long injury. Yeah. Yes, you had McCaw at 7, but the rest of that team were all kids. and that's the way that New Zealand used to treat us. But you look at this, that shows that it's a compliment to us that they're turning up full noise, and that's what you want. I would, if we're going to beat the All Blacks, I would rather we beat the All Blacks. I don't want to beat the
Maoris or the
Maoris. Yeah, exactly. That's who we want to beat if we're going to prove that we can do that. And yeah, I think the physicality of the forwards of the All Blacks scares me a lot. I think our selection at lock is going to be key. And again, I don't want to speculate against who we're going to pick because of, I don't want this podcast to be outdated by the time it's uploaded. But, Scott Barrett and Sam Whitelock, are two of the best locks in world rugby right now.
Yep.
And I just don't see that we've got anything to back that up at lock at the minute.
No. Do you think then, so you've said it's a compliment to Scotland. A counterpoint could be made that it's actually a reaction to the way the All Blacks have been for the last while, that they've been so poor that they're saying, well, do you know what, let's not go to Scotland with a scratch side, because Scotland on their day could turn us over. We don't think they will, but on their day they could. So let's just make sure and get results, because
let's get back. We need results. We need to get back to number one in the world. And when they were fair. That's a good point, John. When they were playing us previously, they were number one. They could take it for granted. They could they could beat us by 3 points, and they're still going to be number one in the world. But now, given how far they've fallen, every game needs to be won. And now that comes with its own pressure for the All Blacks, and that's pressure that they haven't been under coming to Murrayfield in the past. When they've come to Murrayfield in the past, they've been number one. I think maybe the last game they wouldn't have taken beating us for granted. I think any game before that, they would have taken that for granted. But the last game, I don't think they took that for granted. And so that adds its own pressure to the All Blacks. And the All Blacks are not the mentally resilient team that management, 1,000 management books have been built on.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. They're not. This is not a vintage All Blacks team at the moment, and I don't think necessarily it will be.
I think it is a vintage All Blacks team. It's just, and again, it's a problem we've talked about with Scotland. It's a mentality thing. They have their no D heads rule, and yet they select people who have been convicted for domestic violence assaults.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I think they've got a coaching issue at the minute. I don't think you could look at that All Blacks starting 15, maybe Finlay Christie aside, which is just that's just them on the wind up. But Finlay Christie aside, that is a strong All Black side compared to previous All Blacks. The problem is the coach is rubbish.
So I've got a theory on the coach thing.
Okay.
So I've got a theory on this. I've been pondering this, and obviously I ponder these things in my spare time, as you do. Ian Foster, for me, is one of the first All Blacks coaches in a long time to not have had foreign international experience. And I do wonder if that has caused some of the issues that they're seeing just now, because he's obviously been he's New Zealand set up through and through. He's went right from the kind of junior All Blacks all the way through. I don't necessarily think they'll repeat that mistake.
No, and let's hope they don't, because that means that Scott Robertson will have to get some international experience, which means hopefully he'll come and coach us for a bit.
Or counterpoint, he'll go to those guys down south.
I think. Do you know who the next All Blacks coach is probably likely to be? Warren Gatland, if we're being totally honest.
That would be a couple of years in between World Cup cycles.
Yeah,
fill a gap.
It's a Graham Henry appointment, isn't it? It's a kind of, here's a guy, he's done it, appoint him, he brings somebody in who has the international experience. I mean, it could even be who's the guy they've got as director of rugby, used to be the Ireland coach?
Joe Schmidt.
Joe Schmidt. I mean, Joe Schmidt. You can make an argument for Joe Schmidt, who wanted to be back in New Zealand for family reasons. Completely understandable. That would allow him to do that. You could see Schmidt or Gatland being the next. If they're going to learn from that, that's that's who comes in. I mean, we've got somebody on Facebook suggesting is Schmidt just pulling the strings in the background, and if that's the case, then that when Foster goes, it probably would be Schmidt that would come in and take on that role.
Counter argument there would be, of course, that if Joe Schmidt's pulling the strings in the background, he's not doing a terribly great job of it. because their performances are not.
But you can only have a limited impact. I think unless you're doing the full on Razzie, I'm here and I'm here and I'm front and center.
Joe Schmidt, Waterboy.
Yeah, I think unless you're doing the kind of Razzie role of you're in and about the team all the time. If it's just Joe Schmidt telling him what to do, that's different. I think it's kind of hard. It's harder to coach from a kind of passing notes. If it's a passing notes, you want to try this, do this, do like. That's different to kind of the Razzie role of I'm director of rugby, and yes, we've got a head coach, but I'm head coach.
Yeah. So speaking of pulling the strings, shall we segue beautifully? It's almost like we planned that. We absolutely didn't. Should we segue to the talking point? So press this morning is suggesting, and again, if you're listening back to this, the team will be out, so you'll know the answer. We hope. Let's just make a presumption that Tom English and others have got this right. Finn Russell has returned to the squad and will be starting at 10 with Sione Tuipulotu. That would be a great effort. I know, get my jargon mixed up there. Tuipulotu at 12, which we've all got thoughts on. And then Blair Kinghorn has been relegated to a bench spot. We're also expecting...
Don't say relegate, he's rotated out.
Rotated out. That's not the way the press are putting it, but yeah, you're right. He has been moved to a finisher's slot. Anyway, talk to me about the whole Finn debacle, Cammy.
Townsend has massively undermined himself, I think, and we can. I know you've probably covered this on the pod already, but the fact that we are where we are is an indictment of significant issues, I think, within the Scotland camp. And there's a few issues here. Firstly, the camp is leaking like a sieve. We had the leak that Russell was coming back in before the Fiji game, and we put that out there, and it was denied by Gregor Townsend. We're reasonably confident that was always going to be the plan, that Russell was going to come back in, regardless of whether Hastings was injured or not. The fact that it's now been leaked this morning to Mark Palmer and to Tom English, who the starting lineup's going to be, again would indicate that there's somebody in camp leaking here. And so people are not happy within the camp. You wouldn't be, there's a lack of control there about leaks and how information gets out. The second thing is that if Townsend had said to everybody, I'm going to bring Russell back in during the Autumn Nations, I'm giving him some game time with Racing, he's had the summer off, he wants to be with his partners pregnant, he's going to come in and he's going to feature during the autumn, but we're resting him for the first couple of games. Nobody would have batted an eyelid. If that's a story, that's a story. That's brilliant. Nobody would have batted an eyelid. Everyone would have said, fair enough, yep, first game, can't play anyway against Australia because he's playing outside of Scotland. Second test, it's Fiji. Yeah, let's give Hastings and Kinghorn a run and bring him back in. Again, I don't think anybody would have said, no, that's horrendous, that's terrible. We all said, oh, what a great plan. That makes perfect sense.
Non-story, great man management. You're giving a guy, you're treating as a person, personal life, etc. We would all be like, oh, brilliant.
But what he said was, he's not playing his best rugby at the minute. He's out of form. When all the evidence and everybody who'd watched Finn Russell and everybody who then watched Finn Russell during the autumn test said he's playing amazing rugby. Racing are saying they're really happy with him. He came off the bench after the Australia game and completely turned around a game. So he's, he'd been undermined by his own point at the, from the moment it left his lips to say he's not in form. It just does it. It's beggars belief. And then Russell comes into camp and in a sponsored interview with the Mail is asked, have you been in contact with Gregor Townsend? No, I haven't heard from him. And Gregor Townsend saying, no, I'm being in contact with Finn Russell. Why would I be? Which it just seems utter madness to me. Yeah. And you've got what the best he is. And I, people can argue till they're blue in the face, but this is the utter truth and demonstrably true that Finn Russell is the best 10 that we have had since the 90s. Okay, that's unarguable. Blair Kinghorn and Adam Hastings are not playing for Racing 92.
No.
Okay, there you go. Blair Kinghorn and Finn and Adam Hastings haven't played for the Lions. That's not to say that neither of them cannot become the greatest 10 since Finn Russell. They've both got ample time to show us that. But Finn Russell, right here and now, is the greatest 10 Scotland have had since the 90s.
Yeah.
So to leave him in Paris and not to be in touch with him or contact with him at all or check in with him is an utter failure of management.
Yes.
And I don't see how Townsend comes back from here, because when we lose against the All Blacks, I wish I could say it, but when we lose against the All Blacks, my worry is that the blame is put on Finn Russell.
Yes.
When actually the blame should be on the coach, who's not been keeping in touch with his best and our greatest ever 10 over the summer to say, look, you take your time, you rest, you recuperate. Here's my current thinking of game plans that have a bit of input from you. I know you're already in touch with Adam. I know you're in touch with Blair, because I know we know he is, because we know these guys speak to each other outside it. Could you just give them some pointers on this? Are you happy to, using him as a coaching tool, which we know he's very good at Racing. We know he enjoys doing it. But just to leave him out in the cold and then call him in against the All Blacks and expect him to just slot in and fit into your game plan and do what you're expecting him to do is setting him up to fail.
Yeah.
And it's a complete failure of management. It's not fair on Finn Russell. It's not fair on Blair Kinghorn. It's not fair on, to a certain extent, it wouldn't be fair on Adam Hastings if he hadn't got injured.
Yeah, we did. The cynic in us did say the Adam Hastings injury was very well timed. Injury,
yeah, very convenient.
Convenient suits the narrative. I think it's funny as well, because Townsend has said, obviously he's come out now, and Finn and him have both said, no, we haven't spoken. As soon as the squad was announced, he said Finn is obviously disappointed to be left out. Now, how does he know that? Is he psychic? Is Townsend actually? Is he actually Professor Xavier? Is that this is what we're finding out? Townsend is actually an X-Men.
Yeah, and because we've not spoken. Well, how do you know he's disappointed?
How do you know he's disappointed? Yeah, right, he might be delighted.
Spoken to him? Yeah, or did you just text him? Which I wouldn't put past him. Text him saying, "Sorry, you're not in the autumn squad. I'm disappointed. Thanks for letting me know." And that's it.
They did say when he came back in, he did say that they'd been discussing game plan over text. Now, last time I checked, like, international attack systems usually not done via a text message. But
Hamish Allen in the comment is pointing WhatsApp. There's a bit more functionality. Let's be fair. A bit more functionality in WhatsApp.
A picture, you can do a wee edited picture,
wee video,
wee arrows or something, maybe.
And you can get WhatsApp on your desktop as well, So
true, yeah. So yeah, maybe that's where they're at. Maybe
but WhatsApp's open. The All Blacks aren't beyond spying on a WhatsApp. The same resources as the Russian KGB. They could be in there looking at. But I still think this comes down to it's Gregor Townsend's relentless desire to control absolutely everything. Yeah. And my suspicion is that Blair Kinghorn and to an extent Adam Hastings are malleable. They will give you feedback, but ultimately will do what they're told to do. Finn Russell has said he wants to be involved. He wants to be at the center of game planning. He wants to control games. And Finn Russell is right. That is what Gregor Townsend is not on the pitch. Right?
Correct.
And he cannot be on the pitch. He cannot be telling people what to do and where to throw the ball game by game. You need someone to go onto the pitch with the confidence of knowing what the game plan is, but the confidence to throw it out the window if it's not working and to try something different. Yeah. That's what Finn Russell gives you. And I think that's what Gregor Townsend doesn't like, because he wants a team that will go out and religiously stick to his game plan. Yeah. And he doesn't get that with Finn.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because you've got, obviously, in rugby for so many years now, we've had obviously people calling the line out. So you've had your kind of set piece captain, and you've got, very famously the Murrayfields, the Finn Russell game at Murrayfield where he threw that pass, and you've got John Barclay talking about adjusting the approach on the pitch, on the fly, reading the referee and going, that's the tactic we need to change. So they changed the tactics. And it does seem weird that because it's Townsend's almost his specialty of, he was an attack coach. He obviously was an attacking player in his day. It does seem like he just can't release that control. And we didn't have an attack coach for ages.
He did. This is the thing. Under Townsend at the start, the direction Scotland were going in was the right direction. Players were given autonomy to go on and make those decisions on the pitch. And the longer Townsend has been in charge of Scotland, the more control he's exerted on the players and the environment. And the performances haven't, we could say that he's still the most successful Scotland coach that we've had. And our expectations are quite rightly raised as a result of that. But Scotland's performances have plateaued. I think we can't say they've declined. They've plateaued. We're still kind of chipping away at third or fourth in the Six Nations most years. It's been a while since we've been bottom. We're still giving most teams a good game on the day. You've got the Australia result. That was a team of URC players, and we still nearly beat them.
Yeah.
So you cannot say that we're doing badly. It's just that I think that Townsend has reached a ceiling with where he can take this team.
Yeah.
And by exerting more control on them, you're not going to break through that ceiling to take them to the next level. He needs to almost go back to, I need no control, but I think he's lost sections of the team.
Yeah. I have to agree. And I think the indiscipline at the end of the Six Nations speaks to that. When you've got 6 senior players saying, be gone with your rules. We are going to go and do what we want to do. That then, including now current captain Jamie Ritchie. So it's and current with the captain at the time, Stuart Hogg. It's not like it's just players who are on the periphery of the team or think, well, do you know what, it's fine, I'm not going to get picked anyway. So it was major players. So I think it does speak to a senior loss there.
There was really interesting. I was listening to another podcast the other week when I was driving to work, and it was John Amici, the sports psychologist, organizational psychologist, talking, and he was talking about, he's kind of comparing like kids. He's talking about the Marcus Rashford and the kind of food for underprivileged kids thing, and saying, kids that don't have regular meals will have this thing where when they're presented with food, will behave in a certain way because they don't know when the next meal's coming from.
Correct. Yeah.
And even when they've been well fed for a while, when they aren't given food, will then start to kind of worry and panic. It's inbuilt. It's not something in. And he said, John Amici was saying that happens with management too. So if you have been treated a certain way by a manager or an organization, then even if they change their approach and they act in a better way towards you for a long period of time, that concern, that worry is still there. It never goes away. And I think that's what happened with the Ali Price thing against Italy, is that Townsend, there was the fallout with the Finn Russell issue over the beers issue. We know there was that. There's obviously been some other issues in camp. There was this whole kind of facade of everything's changed. We're all best buds. The squad are getting together now.
Yep.
And then Townsend has said no beers for Ali Price's 50th cap. So that kicks in, that insecurity kicks in, and they're going, F you, we're going down the pub to celebrate Ali's 50th cap.
Yep.
And that doesn't stem from, that's not what happened then and now. That's a failure. That strikes back to the failure of how things were managed initially. That insecurity around the coaching and the current coaching setup meant that they wanted to act that way. Senior players, Stuart Hogg included, I just said Jamie Ritchie, Finn, all felt ready to stick 2 fingers up at the management and go for a beer. And it's because they don't trust, as much as say we trust in each other, they don't trust the current coaching setup.
And that in itself makes that untenable. You can't continue in an environment where you've got that, particularly a high performance environment where your management are trying to get the best out of athletes. We talk a lot about professional sports, and always you read some of the stuff that comes out from the kind of the Sky or Ineos as it is now, and those marginal gains, and every team talks about just removing every distraction possible from a player to say, your job is to do this.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not doing this, it is up to you. You manage your time. You are, basically do what you need to do to be happy, because we want you happy in the park. And it seems like Townsend, in some ways, has said, well, I know what will make you happy. I know, right? So, boom, there we go. This is what you're doing.
I will impose what I think you need to do upon you, and you'll be happy with it. Rather than I will create an environment of trust. With where we can trust one another and acknowledge that distrust will never fully go away while he's in charge. But the only way to overcome that is to act in a consistent way that will build trust, and to turn around and say you are not allowed beers, which is apparently what we're not having beers, or just forgetting to put them on. Joe, forgetting to put on a crate of beers to celebrate Ali Price's 50th cap. That's a big miss from a head coach. Because what does it say? It says Ali Price's 50th cap doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Ali Price doesn't matter. The players don't matter. It's the signals.
They've done it with every other 50th cap over the last however long. It's what always happens. So, as you rightly say, it's that consistency. If you change tact for that, all that trauma kicks in and people go, oh, that this is what's happening. So,
Finn Russell's back to kind of coming into camp and going, having a third beer and being told where to go. Do you know what I mean? That all comes flooding back. And I think the other thing you've got to see is that, as much as we say, and we've said before, the Scottish rugby team is not the SRU. What Gregor Townsend has failed to identify is that Finn Russell is coming from a background where a family member has been significantly mistreated by the SRU. Yeah. And I don't think Townsend's fully recognised him. So it's a massive thing, right? That was a massive thing. Russell coming into camp before that Ireland game, having 3 beers, that was a massive thing for him because it just come off the back of his, all the stuff coming out of his dad in the press. So I don't think Townsend has fully recognised that, Finn Russell will see Gregor Townsend as an instrument of the SRU, whether Townsend likes it or not. And Townsend has done nothing, appears to have done nothing to kind of reassure Finn Russell that he isn't. And in fact, everything he's done or reportedly done would do nothing other than show to Finn Russell that I'm with the guys who unfairly dismissed your dad and treated him really poorly and tried to gaslight him into thinking he'd perform poorly. And that's a big thing, isn't it? I don't know how I'd feel going into an environment, if my dad had been sacked from somewhere and me having to go back to work there.
Yep.
Without a manager sitting you down and going, look, I know it's difficult for you to come back. I know everything that's gone on. Don't worry, you can trust me. I'll insulate you from it all. I want to get the best out of you.
I'm here to get performances off you on the park. All that stuff is that stuff. We're not bringing that in.
And I know it's going to be. I know it's going to be triggering seeing these guys that have treated your dad poorly coming into the changing room. I'll do my best to keep you away from them.
Yeah. Aye. And by the way, here's some responsibility because this is how much I trust you.
Exactly.
Help me with the attack. Help me, start to develop plans. Let's work together to get the best out of this team. Ultimately, you've touched on it so many times, Cam. It comes back to man management. It is just good management, and it's like he's taken the Johnny Wilkinson book of management and put it in the bin and said, "No, let's just do the Townsend book of management." And I don't think that will sell as well.
Yeah, and I think that's it. That's what, when you look back on it and really think about everything that's happened, is I don't think anything Finn Russell has done is a Finn Russell problem.
No.
It's a failure of everything, is a failure of management and a failure of Gregor Townsend to think ahead about the underlying issues that Finn Russell is faced with, and a failure to adapt to his management style to meet the needs of an individual player. And that's not I'm not talking about pandering to them or players being undroppable. It's just you adapt your management style to the person in front of you. You don't impose. If you impose your management style on someone and it doesn't fit, you'll have a clash and they'll leave. And part of me thinks I don't think Gregor Townsend wants Finn Russell in the Scotland squad. I think he wants players he can control.
As per, we go back to the kind of nonsense statements that have come out of Gregor Townsend's mouth over the last few weeks. The circus that has been this, and my personal highlight was the when Adam Hastings after after flatly denying, even though we believe it was the plan for him to come back for the All Blacks anyway. After flatly denying this, he was then asked after Adam Hastings' injury and said, "We are considering a number of tens. Of course, Finn will be in that conversation." And it's like, what tens, please?
We're considering calling up Phil Godman. Can still play fight. Give us 5 minutes.
He'll get. He's still got his boots. He hasn't burned them, so he can give us 5 at the end, and we'll bring in. We'll get Duncan Weir. We'll probably call up Tom Jordan, despite the fact he's not actually Scots qualified. So let's get him in the squad, because that's where we're at. And then it all boils down to RT at 10 for the All Blacks. So
so it will take a lot, I think. For my worry is we next week we're talking about Finn Russell. Everyone talk the narrative next week is Finn Russell's lost the game against the All Blacks, and I think that would suit Gregor Townsend very well. If I'm being cynical, but I think it'd be a failure of management if everything we've heard so far is true.
So I think we're hopeful. I think the best case scenario for us is I think Finn Russell, if he goes out and plays Finn Russell stuff and actually just does what he does. I think there's going to be stuff that doesn't come off, and we have to kind of take that. We'll take that. That's Finn Russell. It's always been Finn Russell. So yeah,
the best we can hope for, John, is the second half against England at Twickenham in 2021. What was that?
2019?
2019, all the years merge into one. It was 2019 because it was 2019 because it wasn't during COVID. Yeah, 2019. England, second half of Twickenham in 2019. As much as the narrative from Scotland was, Gregor Townsend and Finn had a nice friendly chat. We know from Gordon Reid and from other sources that is not that is not the case.
The chat was
things went downhill from the relationship went downhill from there. I think so.
It's never recovered.
No, someone's flagging up the Beergate was down to Finn and ignoring senior players. We will circle back to that next week because, as I've covered, I think that is more down to the way that Finn Russell was managed rather than it being a Finn Russell problem.
I think that's a good place for us to start to wrap this up. So, looking forward to the game. We'll get the Scotland team very soon, hopefully. And
what are you doing what are you predicting then, John?
I genuinely think it could be what did I call it? A shumping. A scumping.
I would like to think worst case scenario 20 points on us, right. 20 points ahead. I think anything more than a 20-point difference is an utter disaster.
Yep.
Given the Wales result, I think 10 points or less will be an acceptable result. I would like to see us stay within a score.
Yes, I think that's fair. My concern is I think that whatever Scottish bench we put out is not going to be that good. I don't think we're going to be that. And considering what the All Blacks are bringing from their bench, I don't think we can live with them last 20 minutes. And I think it could get a bit ugly, like it did with Wales actually. We could be within a score for 60 minutes, and then it could get very ugly very quickly.
Yeah, and you end up in a situation you can see a scenario where King Horn just doesn't get on the field, or if he does, he gets on the field I think if he's going to get on the field, it'd be the extent of as long as there's no injuries. I can see King Horn replacing Graham on the wing. That's where I see King Horn coming on if Finn's playing well.
Yeah,
because why would you sacrifice? And as much as everybody loves Bear Kinghorn, and he is a very good player, let me just put that out there. He has lots of potential. We can all see that, but demonstrably he is not better than Finn Russell or Stuart Hogg. So unless one of them gets injured, it's maddening to bring him on at 15 or 10.
Yeah, well, let's see how it all pans out, Cammy.
Or he comes on at 12. Or he comes on at 12 for Sione. Who knows?
BK12, that is the new shout. I'm making that a thing. I've posted my fantasy backline in our wee group chat as well, that may have Harrison Tuipulotu on the wings and Finn at 15 and Hogg at 12. So take from that what. Well, I'm obviously taking this seriously. Darcy Graham an option at 13 in the Brian O'Driscoll mould, of course. So yeah, we're looking forward to this one. But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back, Cammy. Thank you everybody that's joined us. We've had an amazing wee turnout this afternoon. Let's look forward to the game, and we'll be back with the main pod during the week to pick over the bones of what could be the corpse of Townsend Scotland Reign, or celebrate with mead the coronation of King Blairhorn. So let's see how it goes. But anyway, for now, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Cammy.
Bye.